Hello, and welcome back to The Rewired Soul, where we talk about the problem but focus on the solution. And this is the Depression Hack series. So today I'm going to talk about a very important topic. I wish I would have started the series off with this one because it really sets the tone for everything else that we're going over, and you'll see why in a second. But I'm very excitable. I think that everything that I go over with you is probably one of the most important, but this really helps you get on the right track when you can adapt this into your daily life. And yes, today we're going to talk about goals. When we're in a depression, when we're in that funk, when we feel hopeless, when we feel helpless, when it's hard to get out of bed in the morning, when every single thought going through our head is negative, the last thing on our mind is creating any type of goal. We get that voice in our head, that depressive voice that says, why am I going to set that goal anyways? I'm probably just going to fail. And that's what it tells us, and we literally don't want to do anything. So, as I've talked about before with this Depression Hack series, is that we're doing things that kickstart a process in our brain that then kickstarts a billion other processes to help pull us out of that depression. And the first one is setting goals. And I'm going to explain to you scientifically why that's beneficial to help you out with your depression. Starting this video, I want you to remember my philosophy on this. It's to start out with a 5-pound weight. What I mean by that is that you don't go into the gym for the first time, lay down on the bench press and say, I'm gonna do like 1,000,000 pounds. Don't do that. Start off small. The smaller the goal, the easier it is to accomplish. We work our way up. 5-pound weight. Start off with that. All right? So, the bigger goals that we accomplish do trigger more dopamine, but what you need to understand too is that every step of the way also triggers dopamine. So, by doing these smaller goals, you're going to be getting dopamine, and after you kind of build that momentum, then the bigger goals start to kind of come into focus, and they actually seem a lot more achievable. So what we want to do is start off with very small goals, start getting the dopamine flowing, and then we're going to move into those larger goals. So the first thing to understand is that in order for your brain to trigger dopamine, is that you have to set and accomplish very specific goals. The brain gets confused and doesn't understand or know if you accomplish a goal if they're vague. Now, what I mean by this, I'll give you an example. If you set a goal that you're going to call your mom more often, that's a very vague goal. Your brain doesn't know if more often is once a week, twice a week, every day, every 5 minutes. How often are you calling your freaking mom, right? Set a specific goal, which could be, I'm going to call my mom every Sunday at 6 o'clock. I'm going to make it a point to call my mom every Sunday at 6 o'clock. Now, if you got problems with your mom, use a different goal. But I hope you're understanding what I'm saying. It has to be very specific. In a video I just did for addiction and depression, I used the example of cleaning the house. Don't say, I'm going to clean the house. Say, I'm going to start off by cleaning the kitchen, and I'll have it done by 10 o'clock in the morning. That is a very specific goal. The other reason that you need to set specific goals is that if the brain doesn't know that you accomplished that goal, it will look at it as a failure, and that can actually fuel your depression and bring you back down lower. So make your goals very specific. So here's some tips for setting goals. The first thing is that your goals, when you're looking at them, they should really focus on your values. What's important to you? What do you want to do? For some of you, it might be that you want to get into better shape. For some of you, you might want to get a better job. For some of you, you might want to go back to school. For some, it might just be getting out of bed or hanging out with friends or whatever it is, and those all bring good feelings. So make sure that they have something to do with your values. Here's a tip. If your goal that you're setting is to help out other people, that sets off a chain reaction in your brain like you wouldn't believe. from my experience, when I was working on getting out of my depression, a lot of my goals was to help other people out. I was able to help out my mom a lot because she just tore the ligaments in her knee. And just by helping her out, and my goal was to just say, yes, I will help you, whatever she asked, whether it was going to the grocery store or walking her dog or doing the dishes for her, whatever it was, I would just say yes. And even though I was kind of like going into it sometimes, every time I finished it, I felt better about myself. So that's one way that you can set goals that will actually not only make you happy, but it'll make somebody else happy too. And there's nothing better than helping somebody else be happy as well. So one of my suggestions for setting a goal based on your values is to help other people. An example of that would be maybe one goal that you're doing is every month I'm going to volunteer my time at a soup kitchen, or I'm going to volunteer at my kid's school, or whatever it is where you're helping out other people. Now, if you don't get down like that, that's cool, but I highly recommend it because that has a lot to do with getting out of depression. I'll do a whole nother video on how helping others get you out of depression. One way that you can look at this when it comes to your values, like if you're sitting there like, Chris, well, I don't know what my values are. Write these goals down, maybe 1 or 2 goals, maybe 3, write them down on a piece of paper, look at them and say, which one of these motivates me the most? It's really difficult because sometimes that motivation isn't there due to a lack of serotonin, which is the motivating chemical in your brain. So just pick what motivates you the most. It doesn't have to motivate you completely, but on your list of goals that have something to do with your values, pick the one that motivates you the most. That's how you'll know which one's gonna give you the best effect. Next, your goals should be realistic, achievable, and specific. I've already talked about the specific. Make them specific, okay? Make sure your goals are realistic, okay? That's the biggest one. That is huge. Like, if my big self was like, you know, my goal is to be Beyonce one day, I'm setting myself up for failure. Make sure you're setting realistic goals. So, for example, if you have difficulty getting out of bed or interacting with other people, don't set your goal to go and be the life of the party at the next work event. That's not a good goal. A good goal would be to just go to the event. That's a good enough goal for a lot of us who suffer from depression. So make sure your goal is realistic. Next is that your goal is achievable. So that kind of ties in with realistic, but achievable. So let's say your goal is to go to the next work event, whatever it is. Make sure you can achieve that. Do you have transportation? Can you get there? Will someone give you a ride? Whatever the case may be, make sure that you have the resources to achieve that goal. If it's not achievable, we're gonna work on breaking that down into smaller pieces, and I'm about to talk about that right now. So the best thing you can do is write these down on a piece of paper, what your end goal is. If you're going after that big goal, start at the top. What's that end goal? Okay? For example, it might be to get a college degree or go back to school or whatever it is, and start working your way backwards from that, okay? One of them could be if you're unemployed, and this is a big one. People who are unemployed have huge amounts of depression. A bad goal would be, my goal is to get a job. Another video I'm gonna do is on control. So you getting a job, you are in no control over that, okay? That makes you more depressed. It also triggers anxiety. So do not focus on the things that you cannot control. Now, when we're trying to get a job and we break that down into smaller goals, what you can do is I'm going to fill out 2 applications per day. I'm going to spend 2 hours on the computer researching jobs. Those are very specific, achievable goals. So even while you're unemployed, you're achieving these very small goals. And whether you realize it or not, these very small goals, not only are they triggering dopamine, but they're building up into bigger goals, because you're never gonna get that job if you don't fill out the applications. So if you're only focusing on the end goal, you're going to be too depressed to do the small things that work towards that goal. The next thing you know is that it's been a week or a month or whatever it's been, and then you start getting even more depressed because you've wasted all that time. So like I said in the introduction to depression hacks, rather than letting the depression start a chain reaction towards the negative side, let it begin setting off a chain reaction towards the positive side. Because going back to the unemployment thing, filling out applications, searching for jobs. The more you do that, the more likely it is that you're going to get a call. The more likely you get a call, the more likely you're going to get an interview. If you get an interview, the more likely you are to get a job. So see how that kind of sets things up for progress. Now, whether you get that job or not, regardless of it, big bonus tip. I have another video. You can find it in the link up here or over there, I'm still working on this camera thing, or in the description below. I did a mindfulness video about how the brain is wired for depression. So your bonus tip is that you need to celebrate your small successes. Your brain is wired for negativity. It's just the way our survival instincts work. It is wired to think of the negative before the positive. So you need to celebrate your small successes. This has a lot to do with being mindful of, oh, I accomplished my goal. So once you accomplish any small, teeny, tiny goal, you need to sit and recognize that you did that. This will help retrain and rewire your brain, because then you're going to start thinking of the positive rather than the negative first. So one thing that I was doing when I was going back to the gym was every single day after I finished at the gym, I would sit in my car for 5 minutes and I would meditate. I would just close my eyes and think about how good I felt after accomplishing my goal of getting to the gym that day. Within a week, I was excited to go to the gym. I was looking forward to accomplishing my goal. So really make sure that you're taking the time to recognize that you're accomplishing your goals, because that in itself is going to help reverse that depression. So my homework for you is to set up daily goals, whatever it is. I don't care how small it is, how tiny it is, how stupid it may seem. For some of you, it might be making your bed each day. For some of you, it might be taking a shower each day. For some of you, it might be writing in your journal once a day. Whatever it is, okay? Work towards your own goals, but part of what I want you to do for me is have one daily goal that you're going to set. And whatever your daily goal is, I want to see what it is in the comments. And I'm going to follow up with you. But that way we can start building this community together and we can keep each other accountable. Was it hard to meet your goal that day? Was it not? How do you feel now? So leave your comments below about how it's going so we can do a follow-up video and start talking about the progress that everybody's making. So that's it for this episode of Depression Hacks. Again, my name's Chris. Don't forget to like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't yet, subscribe. I'm making a bunch more of these videos and they're going to be getting good.